In the previous video, I gave some words on what I knew about the coronavirus at that time, viruses and pandemics. And I'm following that video up with an update on just what's happening around the country and, some things that I learned about the virus and um, identifying the virus and just some overall issues with how the whole thing has been handled. So I'm going to talk about that in this video. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Anwar Youssef Dunbar, and this is Big Discussions, Science and Technology. First of all, please like this video, please share it, and please subscribe to this channel. So I wanted to make a video following up my previous video about the coronavirus, what viruses are from a scientific standpoint, and pandemics. And so originally this video was going to talk about an article I read in the Washington Post last Sunday discussing the fact that we might have missed the window for containing it, and also some issues with actually detecting and identifying the virus. But things have moved since Sunday, and so I think I'm gonna talk about some updates to the situation, give some of my own thoughts, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about this article and what it said. So what's changed? Well, the whole thing seems to have spread. There are more cases of people who have caught the virus. The virus sounds as though the virus has mutated. And cases are popping up all over the place. Tom Hanks apparently and his wife caught it down in Australia. Most notably here, an NBA player for the Oklahoma City Thunder, I believe, caught it. And so the NBA has suspended its season. The NCAA tournament has been canceled for this year. I talked about that over on my sports channel. And just flights are being canceled. Travel plans across the board are being canceled. I had a trip planned at my job, a business-related science trip planned in 2 weeks. That's been canceled. So across the board, things are being canceled. And regardless of what the health outcomes will be for this, economically, whole sectors and businesses are getting hit right now because there's a fear of having large numbers of people gather together in places such as sporting arenas and venues, concerts, airplanes, all these different things. There's just a mass concern for the virus spreading. So there's a lot of fear right now, a lot of fear that it can get worse, and those kinds of things. So over on my original channel, I cited a video by one of my heroes, Black Gnostic Speaks, also known as BGS, and he created a video that I watched this morning about black swan events. So this appears to be a black swan event. You can go watch that video to learn some more about what that is. So this virus appears to be spreading, and DC, the mayor here, Muriel Bowser, declared a state of emergency for DC. Both Maryland and Virginia have declared that as well. Whole workplaces are having their employees work at home. So there's just a lot of fear of this thing spreading. And so the question is, one of the questions is, so we've transitioned over from a pandemic to an epidemic, it seems, as declared by the World Health Organization. I know that they at least classified this as a pandemic. But the question is, in terms of public health and disease, what is the virus doing and what's dangerous about the virus? Well, we know that older people, more senior people, our elderly, our more seasoned individuals who already have pre-existing, particularly respiratory conditions, I believe they're susceptible to the virus. But as far as younger people, I don't know. Under the virus's current state or whatever it's mutated to, I don't know what the threat to younger people is. So that remains to be seen. If you know something, please leave some words in the comment section below. A very interesting story before I jump into this article is that last night, me and a buddy went out and had drinks over at National Harbor over in Maryland, which is not far from where I stay. And there was a bridal party there, and so there were about 7 to 10 women. One woman was getting married, and they're having a party for her. Well, it turned out that three of those women, in particular the bride as well, they were all nurses. And so me and my buddy, we actually asked them, what's going on? What are you all seeing? And they basically said that there's low concern for this thing. It's not that big a deal. And, we see a lot of stuff in the ER every day. And this, I don't want to say it's a nothing burger, but it's still unclear how bad it is. So you can get infected with the virus, it can get inside you and replicate, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to drop dead and die. And these three nurses, they basically said that to us last night, that they weren't very concerned about it. So again, if you know anything about the actual disease aspects of the coronavirus or COVID-19, please share with us in the comment section below. So, one of my mantras on this channel is, in terms of science, this is a STEM channel, and I want to encourage, the participation in the STEMs, particularly for young people from my background. And I've been very upfront about one of the keys is to read, gather as much information as you can, learn what you can, ask questions, and just keep getting more and more information. So I found this article in the Washington Post on Sunday, and the title is "Efforts to Contain Coronavirus Appear to Falter." And this is by Colby Itkowitz, Ashley Parker, and Seung Min Kim. So I'm not going to read it verbatim, but basically, and again, news is always moving and evolving and changing. So this is 4 days ago, so there's been a lot that's happened. But at the time this was published, what they said in the article was that basically many of the preventative measures that could have been taken on a national level should have been taken a while ago. So this is suggesting that the president and his administration could have moved on this a while ago. And had they moved on it a while ago, it might be under better control right now. It talked about the efforts to test people started too late. It turns out people have to answer some sort of questionnaire about where they've been and who they've been in contact with before they can actually get tested. by using these CDC kits. And if I've misspoken on that, please leave that in the comment section below as well. And then there was an actual issue. So you have to identify the patients or the potential infected people using a questionnaire. And then there's the actual science of testing and trying to detect the virus. And so the article said that one of the reagents early on detecting it on the West Coast was faulty and wasn't working properly. So I wondered about it, and I said, I wonder which reagent that is, because during my graduate studies and during my postdoctoral studies, I used all kinds of kits with all kinds of reagents, and even in my current capacity as a regulatory scientist, we're evaluating experiments from basically the private sector, and we're evaluating the kits that they're using and the reagents that they're using. So just briefly, in terms of science, the term reagent, that's a vocabulary word, a science-specific vocabulary word, which it's a special compound or chemical that's being used in an experiment. That's a reagent. I have my notes here, and I was trying to zoom in to see what the definition was. So in a research lab, whether it's one of the biological sciences or a chemistry lab, a reagent can be an acid, it could be a base, it could be a buffer, it could be a detergent, it could be anything. And kits are routinely sold and used to test for certain things, and they have standard reagents in them. So in this particular instance, the reagent was a probe or a primer for performing real-time polymerase chain reaction experiments, also known as RT-PCR. So now, what is RT-PCR? RT-PCR, or real-time polymerase chain reaction, is a classic molecular method for the identification of a particular type of DNA, or a DNA of interest, a DNA sequence of interest in a sample. So you're trying to identify the DNA of a person or an organism, or in this case a virus, in a sample. And real-time polymerase chain reaction is a technique by which you can identify DNA in your sample of choice. So from what I've been hearing, they're swabbing the mouths of individuals, and so the way the experiment works is that you're isolating RNA. So you want to stabilize an RNA source, because if we go back to cell biology 101, the DNA is located within the nucleus of the cell. The DNA is located within the nucleus of the cell, and all of the activities of the cell are performed by proteins. So how does the DNA create those proteins? Well, the DNA basically is in a double helix conformation like this, and to make a long story short, it unzips, and these strands come apart, and RNA chains are created. So DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, RNA stands for ribonucleic acid. So this double strand comes apart, it unzips, and then an RNA strand is created to complement these base pairs here, and that RNA strand basically goes out into the cytosol here, the cytoplasm, where it, along with ribosomes, or in conjunction with ribosomes, it creates proteins that go ahead and do the activities of the cell. Now, remember from my previous video, viral particles can basically hijack and take over the cell's machinery so that the virus can produce its own proteins, or it can produce other viral particles, and it needs to produce proteins to create those other viral particles. So going back to the RT-PCR, you're taking a strand of DNA, you're taking a strand of RNA, of the RNA of interest, and you are basically using something called a primer or a probe, which that RNA and that DNA has been sequenced already, and so the probe knows which parts of that RNA to basically bracket, and then you have an enzyme that you put into the mixture called reverse transcriptase, and so from that RNA strand you go ahead and you make a DNA strand, and then you can go ahead and you can amplify that new DNA strand that you made, and so now you have lots of copies of that DNA that will tell you that that DNA is there and also what exactly it is. So it's a very important molecular biology tool for identifying, it's used in forensic contexts, it's used in paternity contexts, it's used in contexts like this where you're trying to identify contagions. So that's real-time polymerase chain reaction. And it turns out that the kits that they were using, the primers were faulty, and the primers weren't working the way they were supposed to. So early on they weren't able to detect the virus the way that they were supposed to. But it sounds like they got that under control at this time. So I just wanted to make a quick video updating the situation from the last video that I shot. It looks like it's been upgraded from a pandemic to an epidemic, and it's spreading, and right now fear is running rampant through many civilians, and stores are being cleaned out of stuff like disinfectant and toilet tissue, and a lot of things are becoming locked down in terms of venues and events where large sums of people are being gathered. So that's what I wanted to say. I will leave this article in the description box below, in addition to the article that I read that I actually spelled out which reagent was not working properly in terms of detecting the coronavirus. Let me know if you have any questions about what I talked about in this video, particularly the the real-time polymerase chain reaction, and what it is, how it works, and what it's used for. I actually used that technique a little bit as a postdoctoral scientist, and I'm not a molecular biologist by training, so there are little aspects and many little nuances about the technique that I probably can't tell you, but I know it from a high level. And so when I saw that that's what they were using to detect the virus, I said, oh, I know what that is. That would make an interesting topic to talk about. So if you have any questions or comments, please leave those in the comment section below. Please like this video. Please share it. Please subscribe to my channel. Please stay healthy. Please stay safe. Don't take any unnecessary risks. And stay tuned for any updates on this situation. Always remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Take care, and I will talk to you the next time. Bye-bye.